Hi, and welcome to another edition of Better Golfer Today. Thanks for tuning in. We have another great show planned for you today. This week's main topic is going to be on dealing with the off-season. As always, I'll be sharing what I'm working on, and this week's tip of the week is going to be on the short game. So, let's get started. Okay, so main topic, let's dig right in, the off-season. Okay, so the off-season's here. As I record the podcast, the PGA Tour is just about finished with their 2017 season. And so, the off-season's here. The weather is changing. It's getting cooler. The leaves are going yellow and red and brown. And we are getting into those colder temperatures. So sometimes the off-season's something we look forward to. Other times, we dread it. I know for me, I'm almost always dreading the off-season. I love summer golf. I love spring golf. I love fall golf. I don't necessarily like golf over the winter. So for me, this is my least favorite time of the year. Heck, I live in an area where it's still pretty warm for a lot of the winter. But it's just not for me. So, again, I'm not a big fan of it, but, hey, it's okay. Like, I do enjoy having all four seasons where I live, so, I deal with it. What don't I like about the winter? Less daylight, okay? I hate that. I am not a fan of having less daylight. I like longer days. I like the sunshine. Because you get less daylight, you get colder temperatures, you get more snow. Now, we don't get a lot of snow where I live, but we get some every once in a while. You get wind, a lot more wind. It's funny, so where I live, and this makes sense, right? Where I live, in the summertime, and when it's in the spring and the early part of the fall, the wind always seems to come out of the south. And that makes sense, right? Because the south is a lot warmer, and it's warmer here during those months, and so the wind always tends to come out of the south. Now, as soon as it starts to cool off, I notice the wind literally does a 180 and starts coming out of the north. And it's funny, but that's kind of how it is around here. So in the wintertime, when it's colder, the wind's always out of the north. When it's warmer out, the wind's always out of the south. So we kind of get a wind change every year, and that's kind of everywhere I play. That tends to be what I experience. I also don't like having to layer up to go play golf. I'm not a big fan of that. I mean, again, I like the heat. I don't mind the cold. The cold doesn't bother me. In the sense that it's cold outside. It's cold outside. But I just don't like playing when it's cold outside. I'll go play. It's just not my preferred temperature. I'm not a huge fan that the golf ball doesn't fly as far, but I do enjoy the challenge. So, if you didn't know, when it's colder outside, the golf ball doesn't fly as far. There's a lot of science and engineering and all physics and all that fun stuff that goes into why it doesn't fly as far, but just know that it doesn't fly as far. And depending on how cold it is, you could be 1 to 2 clubs shorter. So it's serious. I mean, and again, it's a nice challenge. It's nice to have to deal with that, but I'm a big fan of not having to worry about that. When you're golfing, there's a lot of stuff you have to worry about to begin with. Bunkers, green complexes, the wind, all that fun stuff. And having to add in temperature can be tricky. And it's definitely a bigger challenge. It's just, again, it's not something I won't go. It's not like I'm not going to go play golf. It's just that I'm not a big fan of it. And also, when it's colder outside, course conditions are less than ideal. And this is not a dig on superintendents, but typically the off seasons when they have less staff and they're not working as much, so the guys are getting a more of a break during the day, and they need a break because they work so hard in the summer months, so they need the break over the winter months. And so the golf course conditions are less than ideal. The greens aren't as smooth. They're not as fast. green to green to green. You can see different speeds and different firmnesses in the greens. And so these are all things you have to factor in. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's still cold outside in the wintertime here. I'm pretty sure I did, but just in case you forgot, it's cold. And if you live in the northeast or the southwest, or sorry, the northwest, or pretty much the entire Midwest out west, it's cold. It's really cold, and a lot of those golf courses shut down. Where I live, they don't shut down at all. And so that's, again, why I live here. But it's nice that we can still play golf, but the course conditions are less than ideal. And so that stinks. And in my neck of the woods, like I said earlier, we didn't get a lot of snow because the temperature still stays above freezing for most of the year. But it rains a lot during the winter. Typically, so I've been living here almost 12 years now. So typically, in the spring and summer are our drier months. And we make up a lot of that rain that we don't get in the spring and summer, like late fall and during the winter. That's typically when we get a lot of our rain. A lot of the years I've been down here, we've actually had a drought. And we'll run 10, 12, 14 inches behind in rain over the summer. And then once February comes along, we'll get 25 inches of rain in February and catch right back up. And so you don't do much golf in February, but you catch up on rain, so that's good. Now this past February was unreal. The entire month was 70 degrees and sunny. So I'd love to see that every year, but beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. But yeah, so we get a lot of rain. So I mean, for off-season golf or winter golf, I mean, less daylight, colder temps, snow, wind, having to layer up and to go play golf. Ball doesn't fly as far. Course conditions are less than ideal, and it's cold. It's really cold and lots of rain. So yeah, I mean, again, I get it. I understand why we have that kind of weather, but I wish it could be nice all the time, but that's how it is. I mean, we do get beautiful spring, we get an awesome fall, and we get a hot summer. But the winters are cold and wet, and so it gives us a little bit of a break. And so, every time the off season rolls around, I'm always trying to figure out what am I going to do this off season, and to get better. And I get asked these questions. Hey, it's off season. What should I do to get better? What should you do to get better? And the answer is it depends. It depends because everyone's game is a little different. Some people may need to work on their tee shots, and others may need help with the short game. Others might need help with their approach shots. So instead of telling you what to work on, I am going to kind of lay out what would help people get better in several different areas of their game, and then you can decide if any of this stuff makes sense for you. I know for me, a lot of the winter. I don't like hitting a lot of golf balls, just with tons of layers on. So I like to spend a lot of time working on short game and putting. And I like to, shore up those areas of my game. And so this coming winter, I'm actually going to be spending a lot more time in bunkers. Because my bunker game is not that great. Now, mind you, I don't hit it in very many bunkers. I'm a pretty good iron player. So I don't hit it in very many bunkers. But I need to get better out of them. And I need to improve my short game some. So be working on some putting, working on some short game, getting better at a greenside bunkers. But let's dig right into this. So tee shots. So some of the best things you can work on with your tee shots are fundamentals, hitting up on the ball, and if you haven't been fit for a driver, get fit or plan to get fit for a driver. Okay, your fundamentals are really important. If you have solid fundamentals, it makes it a whole lot easier to make swing changes and to do things slightly different if you're a little off. So fundamentals are really, really important. Hitting up on the ball is a really big deal. This is something through the flight scopes and TrackMans of the world that we've been able to figure out, and it's part of the science of the game that you definitely need to hit up on the ball with your driver. You need to have a positive attack angle. So hit up on the driver, and working on hitting up on the driver is really not that hard to do. Again, it plays in with your fundamentals, and it's just, you can get the ball so much farther and get so much better ball flight mechanics if you hit up on the ball. So work on hitting up on the ball is a good idea. And lastly, like I said, get fit for a driver, especially if you haven't done it before, or at least make plans to get fit for your driver. Typically, sometime after the first of the year, your golf course will start making plans to have like their demo days, and so marking those down in the calendar and making it a big a point to be there when the fitter gets there, so you can start trying out stuff and get it fit for a driver is a pretty good idea. So those three things are really important for your tee shots. Moving on to your approach shots. Again, fundamentals. If we're talking full swing, I'm going to talk about fundamentals. Fundamentals are really important. Work on curving the ball, either to the right or to the left. It doesn't matter to me which way you work it, but it does matter to you, so you should have a preference, and you should work on going both ways. Since we talked about hitting up on the ball with a driver, you want to make sure you're always hitting down on the ball with your irons. You can't maximize your irons and get the most out of them if you're not hitting down on the ball. And lastly, like with your tee shots, get fit for your clubs. And if you don't want to get fit, make plans to get fit. You can seriously be leaving like 20 yards per club on the table by not having irons that fit you right. I'm not kidding. You could seriously be leaving 20 yards per club, which is serious. And I don't know why anyone would want to leave 20 yards like on the table. That's just me. I mean, the last set of irons that I switched to, I picked up 10 yards per club. And on my longer irons, I picked up some almost 12 yards per club. So, I mean, that was someone that switches irons pretty frequently. I was able to get 10 to 12 more yards, which is awesome. So if you haven't had irons in a couple years, you are leaving yards on the table. All right, moving on. Short game. Your fundamentals are still really important. I know it's boring, and you keep hearing the word fundamentals, and the brain's like, oh, fundamentals. No, fundamentals are important. So work on those with your short game. If you don't have any go-to shots developed, work on those and develop some go-to shots. If you don't have any, or you don't have a reliable chip shot around the greens, then just spend some time working on one. And it could be any chip shot that you want to work on, whether it be a bumping around a tight lice chip or whatever. Pick one that's easy to develop and easy to practice it, and you'll get better, and you'll notice a difference. It's short game. And the nice thing about short game, if you have good fundamentals and you spend time working on it, it will get better. It's a fact. Like, if you have good fundamentals and you practice them, you will get better. So that's why a lot of people point you to the short game, because it's not overly difficult to work on. So there you go. Moving on. I don't see a lot of people practice this, and I don't know why, but they should hit high shots, and they should be able to hit low shots with the clubs that they chip with. I know it's easier to just pull out like a 7-iron and hit a bumper around chip shot, but sometimes you need to hit that with a sand wedge. Just saying. And I know it doesn't sound like a great idea to hit like a high lofted shot with like a 9-iron, but sometimes, once in a while, that may be the case where you need to like maybe elevate a 9-iron and then get it on the green and get rolling. Not saying like it's going to be very common, but I am saying like practicing that stuff and knowing the fundamentals of how to hit those shots can really be beneficial to you. And so let's jump from there to your putting. And if I haven't mentioned fundamentals yet, I'm going to mention it right now. Fundamentals. Work on your fundamentals for your putting. Now, your fundamentals for your putting can be a little bit different per player. So you just want to make sure you know what the fundamentals for you are. You want to know what how your setup is supposed to look like, how you line up. Some people putt and they're open. Some people putt and they're close to the target. Okay, so some people putt when they're square. It just depends on you. Putting is very much more feel than any other part of the game. So I don't want to go ahead and tell you that this is your fundamentals and this is how you're supposed to look. So I'm not. But, you need to know how you are supposed to look and what your fundamentals are supposed to be like. And then I'm going to tell you to practice making putts inside 4 feet. And I'm going to tell you to start making putts inside 6 feet. And then I'm going to start telling you to make putts inside 8 feet and practice making putts inside 10 feet. Now, notice I didn't say practice putting at 10 feet and in. I said practice making putts. Okay? The goal is to make the ball go in the hole. And you want to do that as quick as possible and as efficiently as possible. So, practice making putts from 4, 6, 8, and 10 feet and in. Okay? And get good about it. So that's it. That's it on the main topic. Let's jump right into what I'm working on. And so right now, I mentioned this earlier, I've shifted gears to my own off-season work, and I've started doing more fundamentals and doing some little tweaks here and there to get my shoulders a little steeper during the swing. Also, I'm working on putting together a fundamental video series for you guys, so stay tuned for that, because that'll be really good. And, because again, it is off-season, I'm going to be spending more time on short game and putting and improving my bunker play. So that's currently what I'm working on. And shifting gears one more time to the tip of the week. This week's tip of the week is going to be on your short game. Since the weather is changing as I record this podcast all over the United States, I'd like to share a little tip for some winter golf. Get the ball on the ground and rolling to the hole. If you can bump and run it, bump and run it. The greens are their most inconsistent all year right now, with watering schedules and increases in rainfall and moisture, and the moisture stays on the ground longer. Don't let bad bounces ruin your chip shot. Get it on the ground and get it rolling. Okay? So that's the tip of the week. And that's all I have for you this week. As always, thank you for tuning in. And we have more great shows just around the corner. So please stay tuned for those. And so again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later.